Morning, County Council. Bring the meeting to order. And if you join me in standing, we'll sing "O Canada."
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Council. I'll now ask the clerk to take the roll call, please.
Councillor Mackey, Councillor McKay, Councillor Carlton, Councillor Pringle, Councillor McQueen, Councillor Nielsen, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Dickert, Councillor Kentner, Councillor Keaveney, Councillor Body, Councillor Gregg, Warden Milne, Councillor Dobreen, Councillor Matrosovs, Councillor Bourdignon,
Present.
Councillor Eccles, Councillor Hutchinson.
Present.
We have all members in attendance today.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations of the Grand River, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, Wyandot, Wyandot peoples on whose traditional territories we gather and whose ancestors signed treaties with our ancestors. We recognize also the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. The first order of business this morning is the adoption of the minutes. We have the County Council and Committee of the Whole minutes dated June 22nd of 23. Someone care to move those minutes? Councillor Dobreen, Councillor Gregg seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next set of minutes is from the CAO Performance Evaluation Committee minutes dated July 6th of 23. Someone care to move? Councillor Mackey, Councillor Patterson. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next set of minutes are the Long-Term Care Redevelopment Planning Task Force minutes dated July 6th, 23. Someone care to move adoption? Councillor Mackey, Councillor Pringle. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Next minutes are the Committee of the Whole and CAO Performance Evaluation Committee closed meeting minutes dated June 22nd and June 29th. Someone care to move? Councillor Keaveney, Councillor Body. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We have no closed meeting matters related to minutes. The first report is from the Grey Bruce Health Unit, the Board of Health minutes of April 28th, 23. Is Dr. Era going to be joining us? Do we know? No. Okay. Someone care to move those minutes? Councillor Dickert, Councillor Eccles. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. The next is the approval of land purchase, Gray Road 19 and Crosswinds Boulevard. Someone care to move that report? Councillor Keaveney, Councillor Matrosovs. Michael, you want to speak to that report?
Thank you, Warden. County Council, good morning.
I'll be brief. This report is with respect to the purchase of a rectangular parcel of road widening at the intersection of Gray Road 19 and Crosswinds Boulevard, the town of Blue Mountains. Land is required as part of the project to construct the roundabout at that intersection. Today, staff are seeking approval pursuant to the acquisition of land procedure for a negotiated purchase of this land. It's been negotiated in accordance with that procedure, which requires final approval from County Council. The parcel to be obtained is approximately 0.191 acres in size, runs the full width of the parcel frontage of the land immediately abutting the roundabout location. It extends to the minimum depth required to construct the roundabout. These terms are in accordance with direction that has been given by County Council with respect to this acquisition. That said, I should note that direction was also given through the last meeting of the Committee of the Whole, which was just ratified, which may have required expropriation of a smaller section of land, which represented the minimum roundabout footprint, very similar to this parcel, but a crescent-shaped piece. However, a negotiated purchase has been reached with the landowner, and so we are seeking approval for that today. The additional land beyond the crescent-shaped piece has been identified as it may facilitate construction of utilities and relocation of utilities around the roundabout.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions regarding that report? Not seeing any. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Michael. The next report is a motion for consideration related to the updated financial impact assessment for the Rockwood Terrace project as presented to the long-term redevelopment committee on July 6th. So could I have someone move the receiving of Councillor Carlton, Councillor Eccles, Mary Lou, good morning. Sorry, we need to vote on the 2/3. We need 2/3 vote to reconsider. Sorry. For this motion. Okay, so as I understand it, we just need a simple majority to consider this motion. The actual motion to reconsider will be next.
Motion to consider majority and Mary Lou will give the presentation that passes.
Right.
And this is the motion to be reconsidered.
Perhaps I'll get the clerk to express what she's talking about rather than me try to interpret it after not hearing half of it.
My apologies if I'm losing my voice a little too, which doesn't help. Thank you, Mr. Warden. So through you, the current motion on the floor is a suggestion from staff in order to keep the Rockwood Terrace project moving along in good time. If you were to consider passing this resolution, which would allow you to reconsider the earlier motion passed from March 23rd, 2023, which established the upset limit for the Rockwood Terrace redevelopment project. So should this pending motion pass, Mary Lou will provide a presentation on that updated project scope, and then the resolution to be reconsidered can be considered after her presentation.
And we only need a simple majority for this motion. So are there any questions regarding what we're voting on? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. So now the next motion then, which will allow Mary Lou to describe what we're proposing or what the committee is proposing. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Mackey, second, Councillor Dickert. We need 2/3 for this one, correct? Or will Mary Lou? Okay, Mary Lou's going to describe what the impact is, and then we'll vote on that. Mary Lou.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So we're here to discuss today an updated costing as part of the redevelopment task force committee report that was heard last week. So the purpose of the presentation is to provide an update on that costing based on the revised scope, the status of ministry funding, the borrowing required, and to talk a little bit about the increase to the net levy in the 2024 to 2026 budgets. So as you're all aware, when we discussed this the end of March, in order to reduce the project cost, we reduced the scope, which Colliers was asked to come back and take a look at costing based on the removal of the village square and the assisted living that would focus on redevelopment of 128 beds. And as a reminder, Rockwood Terrace currently has 100 beds. As a result of looking at the project and reducing the building footprint, it pulled the building forward on the site, which allows for reduced stormwater facilities and grading. And so the cost was reduced to 96.7 million. And my apologies on that. The 108 million refers to borrowing. The Class B estimate that was provided the end of March was 125.7 million. So it's a 23.1% reduction. The target we were given March 23rd was 92 million. And so we're currently within 5% of that and looking at 96.7% as provided by Colliers. Sorry, 96.7 million as provided by Colliers. And just a comment here on interest rates. So interest rates yesterday from Infrastructure Ontario. So they've gone up 0.44% for a 25-year debenture and 0.27% for construction loans since the March presentation. When we look at budget project risks, there are, of course, significant change orders or unforeseen risks associated with any build of that size and scope. Interest rate increases. 2 months ago, they didn't predict a 25 basis point increase yesterday. That we would estimate the estimated reserves would be depleted earlier than planned. Currently, we're withdrawing just about $9.3 million in the budget this year, which takes that reserve down to about 400,000, less the commitments that have been made in the last redevelopment meeting where we would do some of the site work, additional cost, and then we will go and with the early works project that Randy brought a report forward on that has been approved. We'll finance that internally until we go out for a construction loan, and we would anticipate that occurring in early 2024. Risk with DC collection being less than forecasted, that'll increase financing requirements. The DC background study provides about $5.6 million in development charges that could be allocated to this project. In 2022, just about 992,000 was collected for long-term care. Also an impact is higher demand in the early stages for construction financing. So what that means is we do our best estimates to identify the cash flow that we're going to be paying out to the various contractors and support companies. And the earlier that we pay more money, then we're going to need the construction financing, which in turn increases our interest payments. Just to talk a little bit about Ministry of Long-Term Care redevelopment funding. So that provides just over $1 million a year or 25.1 million over 25 years to assist with redevelopment. There was additional construction fund subsidy that was offered for projects that could start construction by the end of August. No indication has been provided that there will be an extension to the August deadline. And as you're aware, the county continues to advocate for an extension through AMO. How we fund a project. So as mentioned, the construction loan will finance the project until it's ready to be converted into a debenture. So under a construction loan, you pay interest only. And then once we issue the debenture, that'll be a principal and interest payment that becomes a levy requirement. And the term that we've used for 25 years matches up with the length of time the province provides construction subsidy. Grey County can access funds through Infrastructure Ontario, which is a several-month process. Any borrow beyond 25 million has to go to their board of directors. And the loan application, in order to begin moving through the process, requires a borrowing bylaw that is approved by council. The current project estimate is 96.7 million. Based on what we have in reserves and the development charges, the current estimate is we would borrow around 77.6 million. An annual debenture payment, principal of interest of $5.3 million based on the $77.6 million would be required. The ministry funding, as I've mentioned, is just over $1 million. And that reduces the net levy requirement to 4.3 million. That payment is calculated based on a 25-year term with a 4.75% interest rate. And just to summarize, the interest on the debenture payment is $55.8 million. Also, as a comment, as increasing the number of residents and a larger building footprint will increase the operating costs. And some of that will be offset. There will be additional revenue based on the additional 28 residents. When we look at how much we can borrow, Grey County's debt management policy says we shouldn't exceed 10% of our own source revenue. And that's based on our internal and external debt. The provincial limit is 25%. And the 25% is $17,557,213. At our own policy at 10%, 10% comes out to $8,089,017. And after I take into account internal debt, that's $7,243,821 remaining. So based on current commitments, we could borrow approximately another $42.3 million. Oh, we've got a dollar sign there. I thought I changed that at 4.75% for 25 years. The current levy contribution for redevelopment is $1,361,000. This will need to ramp up over the 2024 to 2027 budgets to cover construction loan interest payments in 2024 to 2026 and to fund the debenture payments that'll begin in 2027. Next steps. If council approves the upset limit of 96.7 million, we will be working with Infrastructure Ontario to complete a loan application and to advise Colliers that the upset limit has been approved. This would result in going to tender in late fall for spring 2024 construction. And as I've mentioned previously, we would be delegating at AMO for another round of construction fund top-up. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Are there any questions regarding the presentation? Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you, Warden Milne. I do have, I think, a couple of questions. My first question is, during discussions on when we revised the limit to the 92 million, that was taking into account the information that we had at the time, adding in a 10% construction cost wiggle room. What was the explanation given for why their costing is coming in at $4.5 million more than our estimate?
Good morning, Council, and thank you, Councillor Nielsen, for the question. The $92 million was a target that we provided to our consultants. There had not been at that point any real detailed work undertaken to determine exactly what it was that could be removed that would take us to that place. So we used as staff, used the information that we had available to provide a target that we thought was going to be a stretch, but hoped that it would be achievable. I think we're still very hopeful that the early works tender will provide some further relief to the county as far as what costs are. And we won't know that until the end of August when that tender closes and we have an opportunity to review the bids that we get. So much of what's in this bid is costs that really don't change no matter what we do. If you're going to build this, you are going to service it. You are going to manage your stormwater. There are a lot of costs that are fixed. And the other challenge is, and we saw this in the earlier discussions from Colliers, that inflation, while it's come down, continues to impact us. So, the costs, you're running fast to maybe in some cases just try and keep up. So I hope that helps.
Thank you very much for that, CEO Wingrove. Just a follow up then. The $96.7 million is an estimated cost because we haven't gotten a tender. What is the difference in doing this process now, setting a budget at 96.7? We go to tender comes back higher or lower than this amount. Do we then have to come back to this committee to make another decision whether or not we're going up or down? Or sorry, above, because if we're saying we have an upset limit of 96 and they come in less, well then hooray for us. Why wouldn't we wait till we go to tender to see what the tenders are coming in and then make this decision as to whether or not we're going to fund any difference between the upset limit and the tender amount?
The process that the province has laid out for us does require council to make decisions kind of at a timely way throughout the process. They are looking for this confirmation from council at this stage that you're behind the project and that you're looking to move forward. As Mary Lou said, we need to have confirmed our financing in order to close the big tender at the end of the year. So, all of these things are kind of interrelated one to another. And so that's why we're looking to that. And I think overall, the thing that we're most concerned with and pushing hard for is being able to demonstrate to the province that we're moving forward as expeditiously as we can with this project. We're very, very close to that end of August timeline that the province was originally looking for the construction funding top up. And we would very much like to be able to tell them, we're so close. Is there not a way that you could continue to see your way clear to provide that additional funding?
I think also it would very much strengthen our hand at the delegation at AMO if we can demonstrate that council is firmly behind this project. Was it Councillor Mackey?
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Good morning, County Council. And through you, the construction subsidy, Kim, that you spoke to, that we have the AMO delegation. I know Advantage Ontario, who represents a number of municipal homes. This isn't an issue that's only for Grey County. There's many other homes throughout the province that could really use this construction subsidy. So it's not Grey County alone, asking for this. There's many homes that could potentially be in jeopardy if it's not for this construction subsidy. Mary Lou, could you just again tell us what that construction subsidy would be if we were successful in getting it, please?
For you, Mr. Warden. There's two components. It's $35 a per diem per bed. So they would allow you to take $15 of that up front, and that reduces your borrowing costs. They do discount it by net present value because you're taking it early. So that would give us about $10,400,000 to reduce the amount we would debenture. and the remaining $20 gives us $434,400 a year, or $23,360,000 over the 25 years. So you're looking at over $33 million in total over 25 years.
Well, that is certainly significant. And as you said, Mr. Warden, to put us in a spot that we have a stronger argument at AMO makes complete sense, because that's not chump change that Mary Lou just talked about. That would make a huge difference on the overall debt that the county is going to incur. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackey. Any other questions? Councillor McQueen, and then Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and to discuss the part around the interest rate. So the 4.75, is that as up this morning? Because I know interest rates went up 0.25% yesterday, or is that prior to yesterday's for infrastructure material?
For you, Mr. Warden, the rates for infrastructure Ontario yesterday were 4.79% for a 25-year debenture and 5.26% for a construction loan.
So that's reflecting that 0.25% that would have came out yesterday? To you?
The calculations that are in this report, I used 4 3/4, so it's quite close.
So following up on that, I know that there's a lot of discussion around interest rates and raising, but they're also saying there's an 80% chance that interest rates are going to go up another 0.25% in September. So I guess the question is where is it going to stop? Because we're at, and I'm only asking this objectively, and I know Mary Lou, you asked that as well in the past. So I guess that's something that we have to keep in mind is where is that side going to stop? And as I don't know what each 0.25% equals in a sense of cost of borrowing over 25 years, but I'm sure it's substantial. So anyway, just as a note, thank you.
Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you, Warden, and good morning, County Council, and thank you for the report. There's a lot to absorb with all of the moving parts, and I appreciate the education. I was just wondering, separate from all the financial aspects of it, with the removal of the village square and the assisted living, which had been the plan to help pay for some of this, and the movement of the building forward, it was mentioned, does that prevent anything being added at a future date? Adding back the assisted living or the market rents, or, having private structures? I was just thinking future.
I think when we looked carefully at the numbers, it became clear that the assisted living would not be a net positive revenue piece. So well, there was, we looked at it as a service and something that the county could do to extend the work that it already does to a population that, that's a service that's in need. But it really wasn't, when we actually ran the numbers, it really wasn't going to be something that made any kind of significant contribution to the bottom line. As far as the ability to do more work on the site, there are a number of considerations around that site plan and other work. I don't think that this site is one that has capacity to add much more to it. But the county does have the 20 acres on the other side of Rock Street, and we've, through the changes that have been made here, have been able to keep that parcel whole. Whereas in the earlier version of the site plan, there was a really extensive stormwater works on the other side of the road, which compromised that parcel a little bit. So now we've eliminated that. So there's an awful lot of options, I think, that we'll be able to talk about in the future as far as what could happen with that 20 acres and how that might be redeveloped to support people as well.
Anne Marie did get some additional information about the current Rockwood Terrace and things that we might think about for that post 2026 when it's then vacant.
Thank you very.
And as the committee will recall, Jennifer was asked the question, will the reduction in costs that are being proposed here, or we see here, will that affect the quality of the long-term care facility itself? And Jennifer assured us that no, it will not. And I think we need to bear in mind that at the end of the day is our ultimate goal, is to provide excellent services to our long-term care residents. So just thought I'd remind everybody of that. Any other questions? Councillor Gray.
Thanks, and through you, Warden, some good questions, particularly Councillor Nielsen. I asked somewhat the same at the committee meeting. It's noted in the minutes that there was a vote of record. I'll ask for a vote of record again at this time as well, please, Chair. But my concerns start with just the amount of information that council and committee's been provided. If you had went through that document, it was a 5-page document, which included a header page. There's an agenda page, a timeline, an update and value engineering results, and an overview of decisions taken to date. And for a $92 million project, I just don't find that sufficient. It was noted that that was direction provided from the last council here, but I did not sit on that council. This is a new council. We redid our city hall several years ago. I believe it was approximately $8.8 million, 6.6, I think, was construction. $200,000 was moving. I think we could spell it down right about down to the ledger account, but I am not comfortable at providing a further ceiling up to $96.7 million beyond the $92 million that's already been provided. I support the comments that Councillor Mackey's made. It's not chump change, the CFS funding, but the province has budgeted for that in this budget year. That's already been budgeted for. And if you're doing a prudent job of budgeting, they will live up and they'll acknowledge that. They just won't pull that out from under municipalities that are building these homes. Those funds have been set aside by the province. They haven't guaranteed it yet, but I'm confident that we can still prudently move ahead, considering those funds will be acknowledged and forwarded back as we move forward on this. But given the amount of information or the vagueness and the lack of transparency yet in the documents, that's why I'm not comfortable moving forward myself. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Greg, and I truly appreciate your optimism that the province will do what they say they're going to do. I truly do. Councillor Wingrove, or CEO Wingrove.
So with regard to the details of the costing, the discussions that we've had throughout this process are that we are trying to protect the confidentiality and the integrity of the tender process. That if we disclose publicly every detail of how the $96.7 million was arrived at, it will be very difficult to expect that we'll receive a multitude of competitive bids, because you've put those numbers out there in the public realm. That's the advice that we were given by our consultant, and this is the process that I'm familiar with happening in other jurisdictions. Our project manager, Andrew, did tell the task force, the redevelopment task force last week, that what we're looking at here is $500 a square foot. And I think that given where we've been through the years and that what inflation has done to every kind of project in the number of years, that we're in a solid place. And this is a significant reduction, as you said, from where we were earlier.
Councillor Mattress House.
Thank you. Through you, the chair, and as the chair of this particular task force, I do hear the comments from Councillor Greg, that I too am new at this council. 50%, half of us are new. So yeah, I definitely spent a lot of time going back through the previous minutes and familiarizing myself with what had gone on and the decisions that were made with the previous council. But I do think that in the term of this new council thus far, we made a prudent decision to do something that we didn't want to have to do, but we did pull back on the village square and on the assisted living, something that so very much could provide some public good, but we were careful about our spending and said, okay, well, let's pull it back and concentrate on what we really need to continue to deliver. This is not the only community service project, the only community build in any of our communities that is experiencing these escalating costs. We're all becoming disappointed in our own communities about other builds that we would like to do that are not coming in the way that we can. My concern is that if we start losing our step with what the funding is provided on the upper levels, that we will get even further back behind. And I think we've parsed it down to the absolute minimum that we can provide our residents by saying, yes, we need to continue with these long-term care beds that we desperately need here. And so I support the fact that we are, yes, unfortunately, it's inched up again, but this is not the only project in Grey County that is going through that kind of struggle. Thank you, Chair.
I will remind council that we do have the opportunity to go in camera to discuss the details of the 96.7 number, if council desires that. But there's a process the clerk will walk us through to do all that. But it is an option if somebody feels strongly that they want to do that. In the absence of that, I'm asking if there's any further questions on the motion in front of us. Okay, not seeing any, I'll ask the clerk. A recorded vote has been requested. I'll ask the clerk to do that.
Sounds like it looks like Councilor Greg and Wilson are talking to each other here. What do you want to do? No, just before we proceed. So this is the motion on the floor.
So again, the clerk is going to tell us, rather than tell me, exactly what is going to be voted on here. Sorry, Councillor Nielsen, go ahead.
Thank you, Warden Milne. I'm trying to ponder the ramifications of going into closed session, what that's going to take. Part of my, hearing Councillor Greg and the same thoughts that are running through my head. You have a significant scope of a project that I thought I had an understanding of what the premise was with the 92 million. I'm having a hard time understanding what the change was, and where we're headed in terms of what the scope change looks like. We were presented with a layout, a map, and an understanding of the original scope. We've asked for a change in scope, but as a group here, we haven't had a chance to see how that level has changed. What is the change in the site? What is the change in the size of the building and stuff? So I'm trying to understand, and I'm not wanting to delay the process in terms of driving everybody through an hour's conversation just to get information that might not be needed, but I'm trying to see, is there other interest in getting more information? There's a part of me that says it's worth going into the close to have an understanding of what project is looking like. But I'm kind of looking to my table to see if there's anybody who's on the same page as me. I don't want to drag us through information if nobody else wants to.
Very good. Any other comments? Not seeing any. So, Madam Clerk, could you walk us through what exactly we're going to be doing here?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you, so just a recap of where we currently sit right now. The motion on the floor is the original motion from March of 2023 that directed staff to communicate the offset project limit of $92 million for the redevelopment of Rockwood Terrace. That's the current motion on the floor. Options for council to consider at this time are to amend that subject to the reconsideration motion that was passed prior, to amend that 92 million to a different number. Staff's recommendation is 96.7. Alternatively, should you wish to go in camera, there is no in-camera item on this agenda, so we would simply need to amend the agenda, add that item to it, and then we could proceed in camera at that time.
So we need an amendment to change the 92 million to another number. Staff's recommendation is 96.7. So if someone is so inclined to make that amendment, I would entertain that now. Councillor Mackey, you're making the motion to amend.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Yes, I'll make the motion to amend the 92 million to 96.7 million as recommended by the staff. And redevelopment committee of management.
Thank you, sir. Is there a seconder? Councillor Matrosovs is seconding that. So the amendment is on the floor now to change the number from 92 to 96.7. Councillor Gray.
I would just ask for a vote of record on that amendment as well, please.
So further to your question, Councillor Nielsen, I would direct council to the minutes of the June 15th redevelopment task force meeting. There are a number of presentations made at that task force meeting, one of which was from Kezian, our architect, where they provided all the site plan changes, as well as walking everyone through the alterations that they'd made. So that is available to folks if you're interested. And again, if you want, we can bring that up and go through it for everyone's benefit. But basically, as you said, it was the elimination of that front part of the building, which then allowed the building to come down. They reworked the parking on the site, and actually I think it's a big improvement from where we started. And by reworking the parking, then we were able to rework the stormwater management as well. Jen and her team went through furniture, fixtures, and equipment with a fine-tooth comb to be able to determine, if there's any opportunities to reuse existing materials or assets from the home. That's the province makes that pretty limited, because when they come to evaluate the new home for occupancy, they expect to see a fully operational new home. So promising that you're going to move stuff from A to B doesn't really cut it for them. They want to be able to see that you've got everything exactly how it's going to be on the day that the residents move in order for them to provide the occupancy license.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions on the amendment? Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Warden. And through you, I'd just like to comment on those comments, and I accept them and appreciate them, but I would place out there, I was part of that meeting, and that June 15th meeting, the chair's the chair. It was generally acknowledged that was not the meeting where we were going to delve into the pricing details. That would be provided at the subsequent meeting, which is the minutes contained here. So I would challenge that we had the ability to get into pricing or some more of the details at that June meeting. It was somewhat acknowledged that wasn't going to be the forum. It would be the July meeting, and then I stand by my earlier comments. Thanks.
Go ahead.
So for clarification, at the time the June 15th task force minutes took place, Colliers had not yet received the Class B cost estimate from the cost consultants, Turner and Townsend. And so it's since that time that we do have the updated numbers from Turner and Townsend. So just to be clear, these numbers aren't coming from anyone who's in any way affiliated with the project. They don't come from staff. They don't come from Colliers. They don't come from Kezian. Turner and Townsend is a third-party cost consultant used by many municipalities, and certainly I know Simcoe County uses them. And it's their job to take a look at the details of a project and come back with what they believe is costing based on their extensive knowledge of what's happening in the marketplace. So that 96.7 number is the one that comes from the cost consultants that has it engaged by Colliers to provide that information to council.
Any further questions, comments on the amendment? Not seeing any, I'll ask the clerk to take the poll.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And just to confirm, the recorded vote is on the motion to amend the motion to increase the project upset limit to $96 million. Sorry, $96.7 million. Councillor Mackey? You don't need to use your microphone.
You don't need your microphone.
No.
In favor.
Councillor Mackey is in favor. Councillor McKay?
Opposed.
Councillor McKay is opposed. Councillor Carlton?
In favor.
Councillor Carlton is in favor. Councillor Pringle? Councillor Pringle is opposed. Councillor McQueen? Councillor McQueen is opposed. Councillor Nielsen?
Favor.
Councillor Nielsen is in favor. Councillor Patterson?
In favor.
Councillor Patterson is in favor. Councillor Dickert?
In favor.
Councillor Dickert is in favor. Councillor Kentner?
In favor.
Councillor Kentner is in favor. Councillor Keaveney?
In favor.
Councillor Keaveney is in favor. Councillor Body?
Favor.
Councillor Body is in favor. Councillor Gregg?
Opposed.
Councillor Gregg is opposed. Warden Milne?
In favor.
Warden Milne is in favor. Councillor Dobreen?
In favor.
Councillor Dobreen is in favor. Councillor Matrosovs?
In favor.
Councillor Matrosovs is in favor. Councillor Bordigno?
In favor.
Councillor Bordigno is in favor. Councillor Eccles?
In favor.
Councillor Eccles is in favor. Councillor Hutchinson?
In favor.
Councillor Hutchinson is in favor. That motion carries 74-22.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So now we are back to the original motion as amended. And a recorded vote has been asked for on this one as well. Is that what I understood? Yes. Any questions on the amended motion or comments? Not seeing any, I'll ask the clerk to take the poll on this one.
Councillor Mackey?
Favor.
Councillor Mackey is in favor. Councillor McKay?
Opposed.
Councillor McKay is opposed. Councillor Carlton?
In favor.
Councillor Carlton is in favor. Councillor Pringle?
Opposed.
Councillor Pringle is opposed. Councillor McQueen? Councillor McQueen is opposed. Councillor Nielsen?
Favor.
Councillor Nielsen is in favor. Councillor Patterson?
Favor.
Councillor Patterson is in favor. Councillor Dickert?
In favor.
Councillor Dickert is in favor. Councillor Kentner?
Favor.
Councillor Kentner is in favor. Councillor Keaveney?
In favor.
Councillor Keaveney is in favor. Councillor Body? Councillor Body is in favor. Councillor Gregg?
Opposed.
Councillor Gregg is opposed. Warden Milne?
In favor.
Warden Milne is in favor. Councillor Dobreen?
In favor.
Councillor Dobreen is in favor. Councillor Matrosovs?
In favor.
Councillor Matrosovs in favor. Councillor Bordigno?
In favor.
Councillor Bordigno in favor. Councillor Eccles?
Yay.
Councillor Eccles in favor. Councillor Hutchinson?
In favor.
Councillor Hutchinson is in favor. That motion carries 74-22.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, council. Good discussion. Moving on, we have 3 bylaws to consider. We do them all at the same time? Yes, we do. So all 3 are there for your consideration. Would someone care to move the acceptance of those bylaws? Councillor Carlton and Councillor Pringle. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor? That is carried. News and celebrations. Councillor Body.
It blinked. There we go. Now it's blinking. Just before I start, I know Andrew's going to be talking, I think, in a while about the Great Lakes Cities Initiative. We read our land acknowledgement here. They did in Chicago. Chicago, they referred to the Anishinaabe people, the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, and the Odawa, the same as here. That's one heck of a territory to be running around without a train, without a plane, with a canoe. It's phenomenal. Along that line, on Friday, June 23rd, here next door at the court, they held the very first, the official opening of the Gladue Court, on sound. Michael was in attendance, I was in attendance. Gladue is a G-A-L-D-U-E, is named after a person that from BC that went to the Supreme Court of Canada. In 1999, advises the lower court should consider an Indigenous offender's background and make sentencing decisions accordingly. So there's been a Gladue court for a few years. This is the fourth one in Ontario, which is pretty impressive. Years ago, when I was still practicing criminal law, I had the luck of talking Judge Marno on the Crown into allowing a sentencing circle for adults up at Cape Croker, and it was phenomenal. You can come into a courtroom and feel isolated as an accused person. The case against you is already typed up. It's already there. It's on paper. You can look at your own lawyer. You can look at the Crown. You can look at the judge and say what you want to say and be defensive and not be honest. In a traffic circle with your peers around you and with your elders that you respect around you, and with a feather being passed, you don't dare lie. It's a whole different way. It's relationship building. That sentencing circle that I went to was a domestic that was going badly in the wrong direction. And what came out of it was what had really gone on the day of the event, and what had gone on before that, and what had gone on since. And it was relationship building and relationship healing. And it was an amazing thing for me to attend. So starting a Gladue court here is pretty important, I think, for our region. And credit and thanks goes to Judge Marno and the late Crown Attorney Peter Leger that fought for this and got it going. So it will be a table instead of a courtroom. There'll be the judge sitting at it. It will be less formal. There'll be a discussion around it that will help solve the problems. Certainly when the Young Offenders Act changed too, I'm forgetting the exact what it became. Scott can help me out with that. That principle of restorative justice was put into legislation, into statute, to help youth try and stay out of the criminal justice system and going the same way. So this is a very big step. It was nice to see Crown attorneys provincial court judges, federal court judges, justices of the peace in the room from the region to support this. So it's, I think, a big step forward for our community and our region. Along the same line, a couple of days later, in Sound, we put up our very first Métis flag. The Métis have been in this region since the 1700s, up to 300 years. They were excluded from treaties because they weren't part of the Anishinaabe community at that time. But they were French, they weren't Indian, they weren't French, they weren't anything. But yet they've been here. And when you hear some of the names in the community, like Couture, of course, Logan Couture playing in the NHL is from Owen Sound and part of the Métis heritage. Hilliers, Beauchamps, there's so many names in this community that we've just lived with and not recognized. So it's pretty nice to move forward with the Métis organization. They don't have the same treaty rights, but they do have rights to to be consulted with by a Supreme Court of Canada decision. I note that the Métis fish fry will be this Saturday down at Haibu Conservation Area. Again, there was once a town down there called the French Village around that area, which is now Haibu. That was where great grandfather Couture actually resided, where he fished, where he taught Tom Thompson how to canoe, how to boat. It's phenomenal, like all these ties that come in. So that's coming up this Saturday, July 15th at 1 p.m. And we're happy to build relationships with the Métis, so it isn't just sort of a lost word that's in our recognition or land acknowledgement that doesn't mean anything. Also that week, we were very pleased to attend a presentation at the Nuclear Innovation Institute on isotopes. And we've been meeting with community members within Owen Sound that are involved in the isotope business. So an isotope, there's a host isotope that is going into the nuclear reactor and being radiated and then sent around the world. And it's phenomenal stuff. A little host container that's about that size holds 100 to 200 treatments. It's got about a 5-day shelf life that it's got to get to Germany to be processed. And then about 5 days to get out of Germany to go around the world to be implemented into the human body. Right now, if you've got cancer, you're likely to get surgery and or chemo or both. They can attach this, get it to the hot spot, the one that they're doing right now in, I'm going to stick for the name, doesn't matter, they're doing right now over at Bruce Power. They can get it into the liver or into the prostate, right into the tumor. And it radiates or deradiates, whatever the proper phrase is, and it eliminates the need for chemo, which can go weeks and cost millions and make people so sick and has the potential of killing them. Can remove surgery. It's phenomenal stuff. Canada is a leader at nuclear isotope medicine. There's the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council that put out a report called Isotope for Hope. Encourage everyone to go and read it and look at it. It talks about how Canada can continue to lead and how we can become bigger in the world and more important, and eventually get our own processing facility here instead of in Germany. Within the region, there's companies that are Framatome, Kinetrix come together as Isogen. There's something with Boston in it that's about to do second isotope that's taking advantage of the CANDU reactor at Bruce Power. We've got a regional opportunity here. So after discussions with players, City of Owen Sound has joined the Nuclear Innovation Institute and the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council to try and regionalize this and take advantage of this and set up a Southwestern Ontario coalition that will be looking for other municipal players, health players, industrial players to come together and work together and take our little bits, or little components that we can offer and work together as a coalition to take advantage of the research that's going on at Western, that's going on at McMaster, that's going on at Toronto, and use it with our local hospital, with our local college, pull it all together and build this and become a world leader and take advantage of the opportunity that's here. So we're putting together the memo of understanding. We will hopefully be including the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation as the fourth co-chair to start this off and move forward. It's going to be, important for the health of our community. It's going to be important for medicine. It's going to be important for economic development. And it's a great opportunity that we're very pleased to be involved with and leading. So at some point, we'll be back looking for support of the county and those around the table. Thanks.
Thank you, Ian. And again, both of those topics demonstrate the innovation of the Grey Bruce region. Live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. Very much truth words. Councillor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and good morning, everyone. This past Monday, there was an important announcement from the Ontario Minister of Energy, Mr. Todd Smith, in relation to the TC Energy project. So I just wanted to share one paragraph of that. The Minister of Energy has directed the Independent Electricity System, as we know as ISO, to conduct a final assessment of the Ontario Pumped Storage Project and the Marmora Pumped Hydro Storage Project to validate their roles in Ontario's electricity system. The ISO will provide their analysis on both projects to the ministry by September the 30th, 2023. In parallel, the Minister of Energy will launch public consultation on Ontario's regulatory registry and the Environmental Registry of Ontario on the potential to rate regulate pump storage projects by the Ontario Energy Board. Following the 45-day public consultation period and after reviewing ISO's analysis, it is expected that the Minister of Energy will make a final determination on advancing Ontario pumped storage by November the 30th, 2023. So we see this as very positive news in moving this project forward. And I just wanted to make sure everyone here was aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Exciting news. Absolutely. Anyone else? Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. I guess Mr. Smith was busy this week. You know, further to that, there was the announcement in regards to the pre-consultation work that's going to be done for a new nuclear plant at the Bruce, the first one since 1993. So a new nuclear plant up here would be huge for this area. And certainly we all know that Grey County and Bruce County both are recipients of all the money that funnels into the area because of those nuclear plants. So that's good news going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Councillor Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and good morning, County Council. It seems rather small to announce that Kilsyth area has a new playground going in that will be opening up for all the families, but that's part of what will create community there. So a media release will be coming out later today on that. Thank you.
If you're 6 years old, that's the piece of news you wanted to hear this morning. Anyone else? Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Warden and County Council, and just iterate that we did the sod turning for the new school in Markdale when everybody was at Hogs Falls, and that's why some of us couldn't be there. And I saw your picture in the paper there, Mr. Warden. But from that, we did do a presentation at our last council meeting. And during lunchtime for the hospital and the proceeds from the Ram Rodeo. And I'm happy to say that there was $50,000 raised this year that goes toward the hospital foundation in Markdale. And this is our third year, and everybody had a great time, and $50,000 is put in achievement. So I just wanted to bring that forward.
Thank you, Councillor McQueen, and congratulations on that. That's phenomenal. Excellent. Anyone else? I will just note that at our last council meeting, it was announced that, or we celebrated the fact that Ray Robertson would be inducted into the Ontario Hall of Agricultural Fame. In fact, Ray is also going to be in Charlottetown later this fall to be inducted into the Canadian Ag Hall of Fame. So congratulations to Ray. Anyone else? Okay, I take a motion to adjourn our council meeting. Councillor McQueen, seconded by Councillor Patterson. All in favor? That is carried. We will be starting our committee of the whole meeting. Are you? No. I thought that likely where the confusion laid. So I'm more excited to hear from you. So don't worry. We will. But let's take, if anybody wants, let's take say a 10-minute recess. We'll reconvene at 11:15 and we'll continue on with our committee of the whole meeting.
Turns it on, red light, it's live, and then to shut it off, it's
1 minute warning. All right, council and guests, got thumbs up from the from Rob at the back. So we'll bring our meeting to order. Is there any declaration of interest regarding any item on today's agenda? Just occurred to me, I think I forgot to ask that on the council meeting portion, but I presume there wasn't. Okay, not seeing any. If one should arise during the course of the meeting, of course, you can declare it at that time. There's no business arising from previous minutes. We have 2 delegations this morning. The first is from Mariana Pristaco. How close did I come with that one? All right, well, come on ahead, Mariana, and she's going to speak to council regarding concerns regarding speeding in the small hamlet of Banks. So, good morning and welcome. Turn. There you go.
All right. Okay, wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. My name is Mariana Pristaiko. I'm here with my friends and family from the community of Banks. Like you said, it's the small little community at the top of the Blue Mountain Resort, right at Gray Road 119 and the 4th line. So as I speak with you today, I want to acknowledge our mayor of Blue Mountain, who recommended that we come here to speak to you about this ongoing issue. So thank you for giving us this opportunity. So if we can turn over to the slides that we have prepared for this presentation. And we are now on slide number 2, please. And next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the community of the Banks. So, and I want to get your attention to the current state of the posted speed limit where we have along the Gray Road 119. So I've done some creative writing here, and you can see that 119 goes from the bottom of the first roundabout around the Scenic Caves. And we have that posted speed that fluctuates between 50 to 30 to then 50 kilometers an hour, because we have quite a few loops going around Scenic Caves. When you hit the line of the 3rd line, and then between the 3rd and the 5th line, the posted speed is currently at 60 kilometers. Between the 3rd and the 5th, my apologies. The 3rd and the 5th line, the posted speed is 70 kilometers an hour. And then once you pass Banks, at about the 5th line, the speed gets reduced to 60 kilometers an hour, and it takes you all the way through the farming land and the rural neighborhood, all the way to the to Ravenna store. And then the posted speed changes again. So our community of Banks, where we have the residential area and our residents living on both sides of the 119th and the 4th line, the posted speed is currently 70 kilometers. So this is right between the 3rd and the 5th line. So right on the 4th line on the corner, and we're the 2nd house on that corner. So we have the stop sign, but unfortunately, as the drivers speed through this, they do not obey the stop sign. They just speed through it without doing a full stop. So next slide, please. So this is the current state.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Terry Semkiw, and I'd like to continue. What we want, we ask you to consider reducing the posted speed to 40 kilometers per hour. I will definitely take time to shift drivers' behavior, but it's the first step in taking proactive action. Once the posted speed is reduced, we ask to add other safety intervention to curb the speeding. Install the electronic radar sign that indicate the vehicle speed to the driver. Install warning sign of the new posted speed limit. Replace the speed limit sign with oversized speed limit sign to the east and west or 119. We also continue to raise the ongoing issue with the OPP and ask install the speed cameras for increased enforcement, enhance enforcement of posted speed limit by OPP.
Now on the next slide, please. So why we want this? So why is number one we ask you because we have witnessed the changes that the posted speed makes on every day for the driver's behavior in our neighborhood communities. Kimberly and Eugenia has recently had the speed reduction, and we see the impact that it makes for folks who live and visit the area. So you still get occasional drivers no matter what, who seem to be in rush, and no matter what, they seem to be getting over 100. But even if that is the case, and you see those occasional drivers, when the posted speed is at 40 kilometers an hour, they will not be speeding over 100 that gets unnoticed. But when the posted speed is 70, that there is closer gap to go over that speed. So right now, unfortunately, what we see as residents of Bank is just an accident waiting to happen. We have seen so many accidents already that happen in our community. We see the cars ending up in a ditch in our property at the end of the line, at the front of the line. We see it on every corner of especially in the winter when the conditions are slippery. I don't believe I have to explain to you, ladies and gentlemen, the danger of speeding and what it means. It is definitely the contributing factor to collisions. Some of the things why it makes the change and what it means to us on the quality of our life as the residents of Banks is that it is absolutely dangerous to all residents, especially those with kids. Like our son is here, so he can't walk to my next door neighbor on his own because I don't know whether the car is going to pay attention that he's walking. So I tend to walk him holding his hand and ensure that I look back every few seconds to ensure that he gets to our neighbor safe to play soccer on his field, The impact that it has on cyclists, the folks who want to walk or jog along the 119. We don't have the sidewalks like in the city, so you will use the main road for getting around. The impact that it has on animals, like we have to scrape off the road, The other thing is the distance in the community of Banks of the houses comparing to the farming land. So the distance of the driveway from the main road is relatively smaller to the house. So it's not like you're going through the woods and then you end up in your property. You like, it's very close. It's between me and you, sir. And that's my house, The impact that it has on the school bus. So when we've met with our mayor and we talked about every morning and every end of school day, we have 6 school buses picking up kids from our neighborhood, going to different schools in Blue Mountain, whether they go to Collingwood or different communities, different schools. But morning and end of day, we have 6 school buses full of kids. And then we see those drivers passing by and racing through like they're on a racetrack. It has an impact to our kids in the future. I can't tell you the impact that it has on the noise when you're trying to enjoy the tranquility and the peace and quiet and the birds chirping, and you hear the noise. And in the supporting evidence that we have, you'll see the videos and the noise that it makes. So Canada has the road safety strategy for 2025. If you think about it, we're already middle of 23. We're less than 2 years away to that. So we all have the responsibility to make the impact and the proactive changes. So that's why, sir, we're here in front of you and the council, why we want to make these changes and why we're asking you to consider reducing the speed limit in our community. Next slide, please. If you can play the videos. So we've attached the 4 videos to help you see the impact that it makes. And this is from our property, just as cars speeding through. Thank you. Next one, please. Next one, please. And one more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Where we wanted, our ask is reasonable, and we ask you to reduce posted speed between third and fifth lines, just both sides on the fourth line as Gray Road 119. When do we want it? Next slide, please. Thank you. The reasonable timeline of the 1 to 3 months before the school year begin in September 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, dear councils, on the behalf of all residents of Banks, myself as a teacher, as a media supervisor, and a good citizen, I really would like to ask you to reduce the speed limit to 40 in our residential area. This is for us, for our kids. As you know, our kids is the future. This is the future doctors, teachers, counselors, and one day they will pay us back for what we did for them. Thank you.
And our next slide. So we have attached the support from the community that we have. So like I said, we have our family and our friends here with us. We have collected 2 pages of signatures. There were way many more people who wanted to come and join us for the presentation. Unfortunately, because it's during the day and people work, not everyone is available, but we have collected way more signatures since then. So this is one slide, and then we have the next page as well. So we have surpassed the 2 pages now. And we keep going. Everyone speaks to the issue that it is. We have contacted the OPP so many times. The OPP officers, they park their cars in my driveway, and they're always able to catch those who speed. It's very ironic, but as you see them speeding through, and there was one gentleman who tried to hide in my driveway. I'm thinking, man, wrong driveway to hide, as you're speeding through 145, and the OPP officer was not able to catch up with him. So then he decided to hide in my driveway, and then it's like, oh, I don't think I expect any visitors. The next I know, he's charged with stunt driving. So there are all of these things that happen. We were able only to attach the 4 videos for this presentation, but I think you get the point. Just looking at those, people definitely don't go at 70. You can see that. The club of Porsche or Ferrari or those fancy cars that they pass through, I appreciate you've invested a lot in your fancy vehicle and you want to get it to the maximum of the speed. Just please not in my community. Or pay attention to kids playing their soccer and playing in the front yard. And this is not a racing field. So I appreciate your time, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you giving us this opportunity to speak with you. We also have our neighbors, if you wish to say a few words.
I don't know. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know we're allotted 10 minutes, and I'm basically going to say very much the same things that Mariana has said, but I'll just make a few points. Banks Corner is the 4th line. At Banks Corner is the 4th line and Highway 119 intersect. Both run along the highest point of the Niagara Escarpment. They are surrounded by forests and fields. For this and other reasons, the roads have very many different uses. There's a lot of animals around Banks. It's a rare night in the summer or in the fall when you come up and deer don't cross the road, and sometimes they come right out of the forest very quickly. So city drivers who are unfamiliar with animals might not be expecting this. Second thing is bicycles. It's one of the most popular spots of bicycles, I've been told, for the whole of Ontario because of Scenic Caves Road and the road up from Ravenna to Banks. Sometimes on a weekend, there'll be 20, 30, 40 bicycles in a group, but there's all through the week, there's one or two almost all the time. Third thing is farmers and their equipment. It's a great farming area. We're surrounded by farmers. They have to do their work. They have big machines that take up the whole road. They move slowly. And while most people are very courteous and wait till there's a chance to pass, you see them sometimes being pushed, which is bothersome. Third thing is that it's a residential area. There's many more people living at Banks now than when we moved in years ago. And the third thing I can think has been mentioned is hikers. The Bruce Trail actually crosses Highway 119 just below the third line. So you always have hikers down there in the summer. So I just have one little story, and I think you saw the video of it. The other day I was driving along Highway 119 when I looked in my rear view mirror and saw a car coming up behind me like a ballistic missile. I quickly pulled over and 10 Lamborghinis went tearing by, I'd say at 120 kilometers an hour. I'm probably exaggerating. I tend to do that. But each one tailgating the one ahead. Highway 119 is a county road, not a race strip. We would like to see this. Okay. And that's about it. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
So thank you again. That concludes our presentation, but we are very happy to answer any questions you may have or provide any additional information you may need from us in order to see this change happen in a positive way. We feel that we are very reasonable in our ask. We are asking only through the community of Banks. I appreciate that Gray Road 119 in the past had a speed limit of 80 kilometers and then it's been reduced to 60. And then through the Banks, it remains to be at 70, which is very unfortunate. This is where we live. This is where kids play. Like I said, this is where the school buses pick up kids. There were many other videos that I wanted to supply, but unfortunately through privacy laws, it's as one car is passing through another and there is a bus, there is a school bus right behind the corner of the fourth line turning around. This is, I think, the example that we've talked with our mayor. And it's, like I said before, it's an accident waiting to happen. And I'm really looking for something for us collectively to take ownership and to do a proactive step. We seem to be, as the community overall, doing a lot of reactive things. And I ask you and I plead to you to do a very positive, proactive things before something tragic happens to the humans. So I ask for your support. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Marianne, and all the other speakers for your impassioned presentation. Thank you very much. Your information has been heard very clearly. Councillor Matrazos.
Thank you. Through you, the warden, if there are no questions from council members, I would be prepared to put forth to my council colleagues a motion to receive, but to also to direct staff to bring back a report for further information. I have, as you know, I've met, but I also live in the very southwest corner of the town of Blue Mountains. So I understand the rural traffic because I use it as well. And as we all know, the Scenic Caves Road, which we adopted as Grey County, is really the third and last option we want to indicate to people to go down to get to the base of the mountain, due to the fact that it was created by standards that we would not create in this day and age. If we're driving from west to east in our town, there is a much more viable route to go down our lovely Grey Road 2 onto our Grey Road 40 to 26 and get to the base of the mountain. If you're going to Collingwood, the choice of route is to go down 119 again, which has much less habitation right adjacent to it, like in Banks, and so the speed is of concern. as a driver, I can contest that it is a confusing route to go from Ravenna 60 kilometers to a 70 and then down to a 30, 50, 30, 50. I try to drive it as if I've never been there before, and it is not necessarily, I do think that it is worthy to hear a staff report, to hear more about that 70 kilometer stretch. The other day I was driving because I had to be at the top, and yeah, I was driving the speed limit up a hill with a double line, and somebody passed around me, and I slowed down, so worried that at the crest of the hill, if there had been another piece of traffic coming in the opposite direction, I would be part of the mess that was going to be at the top of the hill. So I would move that if there is a seconder to consider that we hear back further information from our staff about what might be done in that 70 kilometer stretch. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor McQueen. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor McQueen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden, and certainly happy to second it, other than a report to come back from staff. I know there was a time, I think a few years back, where I think there was a discussion to raise the speed on a certain section of that road, or I think there was at one point when after it was reconstructed. So a report would be warranted. The other comment I do have is where the videos were taken. Do you have a 911 number or where that part was taken? Just because there's a stop sign in between, you said the third line and the fifth line, and the fourth line is Banks stop sign, right? So when the videos were played, is that stopping at the stop sign and then hitting, or whereabouts is that location on that section? So those vehicles that were recorded were taking off from the stop sign heading west? Okay.
So just.
My apologies. So there were 3 videos, then the cars were going up towards the Blue Mountain, and there was one, the truck was going down from the Blue Mountain towards Ravenna. Yep. And like I said, we have the second house from the stop sign. Just as I was sitting the other night, there was a car, and it was at 9 o'clock at night, and the car is just zooming through, and though they are not stopping. Right now, over the last couple of weeks, there was the beacon that flashes the stop sign. Now with the trees and the branches, not everyone is able to see it. So that's another thing, because it's obstructing that view. And so then they just keep on driving. They don't even stop. But I can also sympathize, and also to the mayor's point, is that as you're driving through over 100, and then you have a stop sign, it's really hard to stop. And then you accelerate again. So there are no cars, I'll just keep going. It's in the middle of the night.
Councillor Gregg?
Thank you, Warden. Before supporting such a motion, I'd just like to hear from staff at this time. They probably have details already that they might be able to speak to, provide us with a little bit of background regarding this instance. So I wonder if the director might have some detail to provide at this time.
I guess that's the notion, or the reason for the motion, is to bring that information back to council. So
then I'll just voice, I won't support the motion. I come from a municipality. We get inundated with requests. I was doing a 50 km/h zone within our municipality in Owen Sound last night and got passed by vehicle. 90% probability is between 75 and 85 km/h. We work with police in OPP in your jurisdiction. I totally empathize with your scenario. I lost an extended family member from a T-bone collision in a 50 km/h zone, including the child within her. So it's not a lack of empathy, but the problem is pervasive. The noise is a nuisance. You can consult with Wasaga Beach, Owen Sound, Flusherton, wherever the noise, that's a different discussion. But we have to have policy that's applied across the county and not respond on ad hoc basis. And we have policy in place. It's a county road. It's meant to move people in places. And we have, it's similar. The purpose of the road is somewhat similar to You can't open a commercial entity in a residential zone or zoning bylaws. So I think it's very difficult when we have the speeding comments and concerns, but we need to work with our OPP for enforcement, because at the end of the day, it comes down to enforcement. That's the only way to get compliance and hit people in the pocketbooks. Unfortunately, as my example last night shows, they just continue to speed in a 40 or a 50 as well. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you, Warden, and thank you to all who came and spent time and presented. The concerns obviously are the lack of respect and the inability to enforce 24/7 a truck running a stop sign. Those things that staff can address as far as visibility of the flashing light. I do support getting more information. I do know that after some data collection in the township of Southgate Council passed a resolution to request the county to consider lowering the speed in the village of Dundalk and the village of Holstein to 40 kilometers an hour, and it ultimately did. It doesn't eliminate the speeding. The speeding still occurs, but the penalty is more severe. So I do support the motion to get more information, to have staff do some data collection along that route, and thank you for bringing it to the attention of council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Mackey.
Sorry, Mr. Warden, I know you want to move on, but as Councillor Gregg has indicated, during the last campaign, knocking on a lot of doors, probably the number one issue I heard, whether it was a gravel road, whether it was a paved road, a county road, was the speed that certain individuals travel. Most travelers are very respectful of the speed. You in your video had a number of Lamborghinis going through. I doubt that they're a residents of Grey County. They probably traveled up here, and there's likely a route that they've got on their maps to go and have fun. It is enforcement. If they're going through stop signs, a speed limit's not going to make a difference. So I guess my question is, I know the county has rules around what the speed limit should be, based on the number of houses along a kilometer of road, the sight line, and the condition of the road. Those policies are there for a reason, as was indicated, to move goods and services across the county. Almost every residence, irregardless of where they live, could come with an impassioned, as you did, and concerns about a minority of people that are abusing our roads. So certainly enforcement is important, and that's the only way to get to the bottom of it. The OPP are stretched. Municipalities do have the option of adding to their contracts if they want to increase the supervision, but that's not a county. So I mean, I would be interested just to know that from the county perspective, transportation perspective, are our rules, being implemented? Are the speeds at banks as they should be? Because as you get more and more houses, the speed limits sometimes need to be reevaluated, but we do have rules set by transportation that county council has all agreed to, and we can't be moving away from those every time we have a delegation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Mackey. And my impatience to move on is not from a lack of empathy, because I hear your presentation. I 100%, I can understand where you're coming from. But this debate that is unfolding here quickly is the debate we need to have when Director Hoy brings his report back to this council. So with that said, is there any further comments? Not looking over there. Councillor Eccles.
Maybe Mr. Hoy can help us out when it comes to it. Maybe what we're doing is we're making the roads way too smooth and whatnot. Can we save a lot of money, Pat, and not bother doing that and put them back to gravel? I jest, but I will support Ms. Matrasoff's motion that we need to do something here. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is to bring a report back from staff. Councillor McQueen.
Be very brief, Mr. Warden. I've heard a number of complaints, not necessarily of people driving the road that normally drive it in a reasonable manner, but there has been a number of comments made my way of exotic cars, open roads. I know my parents have a place on Gray Road 31, and particularly on a Friday night, there seems to be a lot of movement of cars in a very fast, and I'll just leave it at that, but there seems to be that open roads that seems to be, and you can't legislate that, it's hard, but it does seem to be happening more and more. So, and the unfortunate thing is, I think is mentioned here is on the video, that may be at a higher level of enforcement and provincial wise as well, because they seem to get up, there's individuals seeing to get up in this area and open roads, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. So a report will be brought back to council regarding this matter on that particular stretch of road. I can't say when, but I would think that we will notify you, Mariana, when that report will come forward to this council. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, we have another delegation. Ian Duff is here from McDuffie. He is our McSweeney. Yeah, it's just been one of those days. Maybe we should vote on that. Should it be McDuffie? I don't know. Anyway, I apologize, Ian.
It's all good.
Okay, so you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I have a presentation that I'd like to just put up on the screen, if that's okay. So what I'm here today to talk about is the county's strategic plan, more specifically, a process to develop a strategic plan for the county. And you folks, along with the senior management team, are really the focus point in terms of moving this process forward. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I've got a quick introduction, or sorry, a quick agenda. I'll introduce who we are. A lot of you already know who we are. We've worked with many of you in the past. I'll go through the process and we'll talk about timelines and then answer any questions that you folks may have. So in terms of who we are, you may have dealt with several of us in the past. We're working with your ECDev team right now and your senior leadership and folks such as yourselves to develop your master plan around economic development and tourism. That's in play right now. We've also done quite a bit of work with you folks in the past. So you may have seen some of our team members. We worked with several of you member municipalities, going back, oh my gosh, many years. So it's nice to be back. What I want to highlight in this slide, and I don't have any video, so that presentation before me, I feel kind of inept a little bit. I don't have any cool videos to show. It's just me talking, so I apologize for that. But I want to introduce you to the team. More importantly, you're going to see my face throughout this entire process. So I will be leading the strategic planning process on our end. But I want to let everyone know that it's not just me. I'm here with a team. Nancy, Kevin, and Erica are behind me, helping me get this together. But you will see my face throughout the entire process. So today, the main objective, I really just want to make sure that everyone around the table understands the process that we're going to be going through together. And it's important that you buy into the process because as leaders in the county, this strategic plan is very people focused. So the approach that we take, it's really to make sure that we're hearing from people such as yourselves. The corporation, Grey County, it's really only as strong as the people that are there, the assets that they have in terms of the physical horsepower. So it's important that you folks buy into the process. And that's why I'm really here today, is to let you know what we're doing, and to make sure that you do understand your role in this whole exercise. So I guess to start off, why even do a strategic plan? The county has a lot on its plate. You're very busy. There's a lot of things in motion. You know, the plan itself is really about building on the foundation that you already have. It's not looking at completely different directions and not looking at rebuilding things. It's really taking the foundation that you have and making the best of it and moving forward in a way that really elevates the county as a corporation and really elevates the county in terms of the things that it can do. It allows you at the end of the day to be more strategic with your resources. So it helps to provide focus, helps to provide priorities, and it helps you look at those things that are really important so they don't slip away and you know, get lost in the shuffle. And at the end of the day, it provides the why. Why does the county do the things that it does? What's important? Why do we have to look at these things? That's what we're going to uncover throughout the process. So at the end of the day, I want to be very clear about the approach that we're taking. This is the county's plan. So essentially it's your plan. It's not my plan. It's not a consultant's plan. It's your plan. And I'll be blunt when I say I really don't care what's in your plan, but I really care that you care. It's paramount that you have your fingerprints all over this thing. And it's really important that you tell us what's important so that we can capture it and make sure that your plan really speaks to Grey County, the leadership, the guidance, and what's important. So we're really here to help you through a process to make sure that you can express what's important and that your views are being heard and that you can really, you know, tell us where the county needs to go in the future. So I am very serious when I say this. You are the most valued asset in the county. The leaders, the people are on the table. You are the ones that are moving the yardsticks for the county. Without you folks, the county doesn't exist. You need people. So we really take a hands-on people approach to this. So you folks, the elected officials, along with your senior management team, this is about you. And we'll be focusing on that as we go through the process. At the end of the day, we have 4 steps that we want to go through. Some of this work is being done behind the scenes. But once we get engaged with you folks, you'll be sort of the main pin, the cotter pin that's going to move this thing forward. So there is some preliminary work we've been doing behind the scenes. We're going to work with you to identify some priorities. And we're also going to have a session in person on the ground where we're going to engage both council and your senior leadership team in the same room at the same time to talk about, you know, what's important to everyone, and then start planning out some actions for the future. And then we're going to come back with an actual plan. So the first step, we put together a communications plan. So we will be engaging the public through this, just to let them know what we're up to and to get their feedback on what's important to them. We will be going through your strategic documents. So we want to make sure that anything that you're working on or anything that's been talked about in the past, that we're not losing sight of that. This isn't, as I mentioned earlier, it's not a complete rebuild. It's really taking what you have and building on it. So the reason for those going through the strategic documents is we can do a solid review so we don't lose sight of what's important already. So the phase 2 is that strategic document review. We really want to understand what the county does. What's important? What are you guys really good at? What are the things that you focus on? The approach that we take to this process is that we're all in public service. So you're really good at providing service to the public. You're more often than not outward looking. So you're looking into the community often to see, you know, what are the problems we can solve? What are the opportunities we can take advantage of? We're going to challenge you a little bit and ask you to focus internally as well. So what are the things that we need to do internally to make sure that we can become the best corporation possible? And that sometimes is a little hard to do because a lot of times what you're looking at is not how to really solve your own problems, but you're looking at solving your community's problems, and that we get that. We're also going to put you to work a little bit. We've got a workbook that we want you folks to complete. And I'll talk about that in the next slide, but it's really about forcing you to think about what are your top 2 priorities. Within this next term of council, what are the top 2 things the county needs to do? Or what are the top 2 things that's really important to you? Whether it be an opportunity or an issue that needs to be addressed, we're trying to narrow it down to your 2 most important priorities. So we've put together an online survey for county council to fill out. It's really just, it's a quick 8-question survey. Well, actually, it's a 4-question survey that's done twice because we're looking for 2 opportunities. But what we want you to do is really tell us what's important to you. And the reason for the online survey is for you to gather your thoughts and really to articulate your thoughts on paper, because the next step, we're going to ask you to stand up in front of your colleagues, your elected official colleagues, senior management team, and tell everyone, this is what's important to me. These are my 2 top issues. These are the things that the county needs to do. We're going to go through an active listening session where everyone around the table is going to have a chance to tell and to express what's important to them. The reason for that is I want you to be able to tell people what's important to you, but I also want you to listen to what's important to your colleagues as we go through the planning process. Once we're done listening to everyone, we're going to go through an exercise of solving problems, strategic planning. It's really a facilitated action planning session where we're going to identify some themes based on your priorities, and then we're going to look at any opportunities or actions that can make part of the strategic plan. That actual session is an in-person session that's going to happen on August 29th. And then the last step is really putting it all together. That's when we're going to come back with a strategic plan. It's going to have a 4-year horizon. It's going to be strategic in nature, but it's really going to focus on what your priorities are. This isn't an operational review. It's not a work plan review. And the idea is not to give you a work plan for the county, but to give you a document that will help guide you, as you move forward with actions that talk about what the priorities are for the next term of council. It'll be short and tight. We've learned over the years, the longer the document, the less people read it. So we're going to try to make it as tight and concise as possible and get to the point with what's important. And again, the idea behind the strategic plan is really to focus on what's important for Grey County as a corporation. What are the things that needs to happen in the next 4 years? And as I said earlier, and I can't emphasize it enough, you folks around the council table, along with your senior management team, it is about you. It's about what you think. It's about what's important to you. It's about your priorities, because you, being the horsepower in the county, give the county life and make it the corporation that it is. So that's why we're taking that focus. In terms of timelines, it's tight. It's really tight. We started in mid-June. And we're moving through the process rather quickly. We've already done interviews with all of your senior management team. So we've talked priorities with them. You folks are the next step where we're going to go out and reach out to you to get your priorities so that we can get all this stuff wrapped up and together and have a meaningful conversation and a meeting get together on August 29th. After the 29th meeting, we'll formulate things, put them together, and we'll start sharing drafts with you to make sure that everyone's happy with that you see the plan and you get the context of the plan and that everyone's happy with the plan. So in terms of next steps, so what's important going forward? In the next week or so, you're going to see an online survey that's sent to you. You'll have between 7 and 10 days to put your priorities on paper or to fill out the survey. I'll take all that information back, and myself and my team will go through it and try to find where there's similarities. Who has, opportunities that make the most sense in terms of grouping them together? Where's the alignment? If there's things that you've put in to your survey that I don't understand, I will contact you directly and ask if we can talk about it and talk through it. And it's not for me to push you or to challenge you. It's just to make sure that when you articulate your priorities with your colleagues at the working session, that it's clear that everyone understands what they are. That's the only reason for the conversation. As I said, the one-on-one interviews with county's SMT and leadership team, they're almost done. And then after that, we're going to take everyone's ideas and actually put them together in some sort of a workbook, and that will be shared with you before the working session. I know I went through this rather quickly, and I didn't have any videos, but any questions?
Thanks, Ian. No, the lack of videos was not a bad thing. Any questions? Any questions? I think the process has been laid out very clearly here for us. And as Ian indicated, it's going to be tight, but I think it's doable. I'm not seeing any questions, Ian. So, oh, Kim, go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks so much for your presentation, Ian. And it's been a great process so far where everybody, I think, has had an opportunity to have some good and challenging discussions, right? I will also note for everyone, the Wardens Forum is on Thursday, the 7th of September. And I'm really hopeful that we'll have a great turnout from yourselves and the members of each of your individual councils. We've asked Ian to also be present at that meeting so that there'll be an opportunity for other members of each of our member municipalities councils to both hear about the planning work, but also to get their questions answered and provide any insights as well. So there are other things on that agenda too, but I did want to just note that while Ian was here with us this morning. So thanks.
Thank you, Kim. So, oh, Councillor DeBreen, sorry.
That's quite all right, Warden. Thank you very much. Just a quick question. At any point in time, I'm kind of favoring it to the official plan process or zoning bylaw process. Is there any public engagement in this process at all, or is this the internal working document for the county?
Good question. Ian?
Through you, Mr. Warden. That's an excellent question, Councillor. It is a very internally focused document. There is an opportunity for the public to provide input or to provide comments. We do have an online survey that's going out to them via your online platform, so that there is an opportunity for them to provide input through this. But let's be honest and clear. It's nothing like a zoning bylaw process or an official plan. It's definitely not that community intensive. It's really honing in on the corporation. And that's the focal point of what we're looking for. But that said, I completely understand where you're coming from. You do want to hear what some of the council or some of your resident issues and priorities are. But it's a fine line we're trying to walk. We're not trying to address the issues in the community like you would a community plan. This is more engaged with what does the corporation need to do.
Go ahead.
This is more the vision, and I really do appreciate there being some public engagement. I realize that it wouldn't be to the level of an official plan, but thank you very much.
So after this meeting, there'll be a media release that goes out and talks about the process. And there's a web page that's been set up that has the background information and some of the links to the reports that were shared with McSweeney's as part of their review. And the link there also for the survey for the public, should they wish to contribute their priorities, we'll be able to collect the information that way. And as well, Rob has kindly volunteered to, take calls from folks who don't have technology or who would be less comfortable in filling out an online survey. So he'll take those calls and transcribe the information. So I'm hoping we get a really good response from people. So thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ian, for your presentation. We look forward to engagement and the finished product.
Thank you very much. I look forward to meeting everyone and really picking your brains as we go forward. So thank you for the opportunity.
Excellent. Enjoy the rest of the day.
You too. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ian.
Okay, so I don't see a report here from Scott Taylor, but we are perilously close to lunch. But perhaps what I'll do is I'll ask if there are any items in the consent agenda that anyone would like removed for further discussion. Not seeing any, so I'll ask if someone would move that we adopt the consent agenda. Councillor Nielsen, seconded by Councillor Eccles. All those in favor? That is carried. Wow. We're on a roll, so I'm hesitant to stop, but I think lunch is here. And we have a significant portion of business to deal with henceforth. So let's recess and we'll reconvene at, I don't know, what is here for lunch? And food, Mr. Eccles says. So why don't we aim for 1:45? And if we can't meet that, we'll meet it as close as we can. So we'll reconvene at 1:45. Thank you, gentlemen online.
1 minute warning.
Okay, we'll bring the meeting back to order. I see we have everybody back and our two counselors online are back with us. So items for direction and discussion. The first is the motion regarding an update on the annual general meeting of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. So Councillors Matrosov and Body ably represented us at that event. I'll maybe go to Councillor Matrosov first. So Andrea. I mean to move her and second her first. Moved by Councillor DeBreen, Councillor Nielsen. Thank you very much. Andrea.
Thank you, Warden. And I requested that we have this information circulated in advance so that everybody could read the summary of the pieces. We're familiar with the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, but what is nice to see in the updates there is that we're now up to 230 members. And originally when it first started, it was well below. And in fact, even just over the last 4 years, it's really grown, doubled actually in membership. So it's building its significance. And that really is crucial because when that many heads of council come from that many municipalities across both borders, the upper levels of government pay attention because there is something that resonates with more than one individual place, and it's a way in which we can problem solve. So I did feel that it was necessary for us to report back. I really appreciated the company of Councillor Body down to Chicago for that conference because one of the things we did was bring the Grey County resolution to it. And you will note when, if you recall back when we first approved as a council that we would be able to, that we would submit that as a resolution. The wording did change, but the essence is still there. So the principle is still there that we want to remind the province that when it comes to things such as intra-basin water transfer, there is an agreement in place that was established and it requires going back to that agreement and making the pitch to the partners about why something might need to be done in a certain way. What is absent from the resolution, the way that it was edited, is specific references, as we had discussed here at Grey County Council, that we have an example in Ontario that we were concerned about, which is another member of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. But the real focus we had intended here at Council was to remind the province that this is an agreement that needs to be followed, and I feel that that was brought forward. So it is very interesting when you look at the summary of the resolutions that were passed, how much activity there is in the Great Lakes area, in particular around our Georgian Bay. So Grey County as well as Tiny Township, there's good representation about activity, and also the archipelago. Reeve Liverence of the archipelago, which is halfway up on the other side of Georgian Bay, and myself have been designated as co-leaders for a new regional group. So in Ontario, there are so many members that we have decided that it would make sense for us to work in more regional structures to be able to say what is important, what's something that's crossing our boundaries municipally that we could work on together with regards to the bay that we share. And so it's been divided up in Ontario, and ours is the largest group. So we're co-leading that one, which is all of the members that belong to the city's initiative in Grey County, Simcoe County, and the rest of Georgian Bay going up on that side. So with that, I will look forward to inviting everyone that's here present to an in-person meeting for that regional group, that new regional group. I will be hosting it in the town of Blue Mountains, which I hope will be a good central location for people. And I don't have the full agenda and itinerary. I want to make sure that it's something that's really worth your time coming in person. And we all sit here as a shared member here, as Grey County is a member of the city's initiative, but there is value to the individual municipalities also joining. So we would like to be able to invite everyone to find out more and see how that can work. One of the key focuses you'll see there in the summary about what the St. Lawrence and Great Lakes Cities Initiative does is one of the focuses is coastal resilience, for example. And I'm sure that the town of Blue Mountains is not the only one that is still fighting Phragmites. And we have it on our area of scientific and national interest. So it is paramount to us that we keep management. And here we are at a municipal level making choices because of budgets. We need that federal dollar to travel down into our municipal pockets so that we can actually identify how that money could help. And as the federal government has been making promises along the way about devoting funds that will help, along with the Canada Water Agency, things like our source water, making sure that our bay continues to be healthy water from which we can draw to drink. These are all important, but rather what we need is we need the financial support from the federal level, but we need the problem solving right here on our local level. So that's part of the advocacy that we do with the initiative. So with that, I welcome any questions that may come from the material here, but I would like to offer the floor over to my counterpart, Councillor Boddy.
How the heck do I follow that? In a lot of respect to Andrea here, because she's recognized by this group for the stuff that she's been working on. 20th year of the group started by Richard M. I think Daley. The second, Richard Daley, mayor of Chicago, phoned David Miller from Toronto, the two largest cities in the Great Lakes, and said, we need to do something to stop water from being taken from the Great Lakes and piped out. So there is the basic building block of this organization 20 years ago that we are talking about with our motion from Grey County, is stopping moving water from watersheds. There's a lot of municipalities more on the state side that still have lead pipes that they're cleaning up, trying to have, we all know about Lansing, Michigan, Lansing, yeah, Flint. And there's others that are like that, and we're in better shape than that, but we're dealing with climate change. We're dealing with shore erosion. We're dealing with continuing to protect the water, making sure that it's clean going back out. So it's a really good organization to get the attention of provinces and the federal government. And it was 2 days of pretty intensive all day long sessions. A lot of it was talking about climate change. Now that you've got a plan, how do you implement it? How do you get it out? How do you draw your community in? Aim for the mushy middle. It's, there's people that are totally against climate change, and you're not going to change them. There's people that are totally recognizing that climate change is important. You're not going to change them. You can probably never quite do enough. But there's a lot of people that are skeptical, that are interested but not engaged. How do you get them engaged? How do you move them over is really what we discussed. So very good conference next year in Montreal. Hoping to return, hoping to see Georgian Bluffs and Meaford being shoreline, lower tiers there as well, and probably Nawashingaming, hopefully from the Cape there. So yeah, good organization to be involved with. Learned a lot, and we are very well represented.
Excellent. Well, thank you from both of you. Any questions? Councillor Gregg.
Thanks, and through you, just a quick one. With the proliferation of microplastics in the environment now, and it's in our apparel and our footwear, and now you see it as more and more concentrated in tires. Was there any discussion on capturing devices for washing machines, even or steps that we can take to protect from microplastics in the Great Lakes?
Thank you. Through you, the warden. Yes, there was definitely lots of ongoing conversation about that. And there are organizations that are already with the technology, and they've got it. We know Georgian Bay Forever, for example, works, and tries to advocate for that. So those are exactly the kinds of things that the federal dollars should be able to help us all support, so that we can just roll that program right across, so it doesn't matter where you live, but that you can participate. But also on the federal level is changing the regulation. to make the appliances comply before they even arrive in the resident's home. So that's another advocacy issue. The other one that was related to it is the PFAS, is all the chemicals that remain in the water, and that was coming loud and strong from the contingency in Quebec as well, to continue to work on that, because they just don't go away either.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Ackles.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden, probably to Andrea here. You mentioned about Phragmites and being a problem. But are we just stopping at Phragmites? Because there's certainly an overgrowth of giant hogweed, some little white flower that seems to be on every county road. Wild chervil, yes, those ones. I don't know whether, how much advancement are we making on those invasive plant life?
Thank you. Through you, the warden, the reason, and Phragmites is just an example, but the reason why it comes up frequently within the context of this conversation is because it threatens the shorelines, and it threatens any of our watersheds, any of our water bodies within our watersheds. I drive by way back up on the top of the mountain. I drive by marshes where I can see Phragmites. So, and that trickles down. So we recognize the membership, for example, is not exclusive to only member municipalities that have shoreline. Anyone can participate who's within our Great Lakes watershed basin, because those kind of issues start at the top and they have ramifications all the way down. But the reason why the others, such as wild chervil, and it's been a horrible year, wild chervil is everywhere this year, and some of the others, is it's not specifically attacking the wetlands and the shoreline. So in this particular context, that's the focus, but that's not to say that we aren't working on that on the agricultural threat front. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. The next item is correspondence from the Beth Ezekiel Synagogue regarding a correspondence from them. Someone care to receive that? Councillor Gregg, seconded by Councillor Nielsen. And just in response to that correspondence, a statement from the warden's office was crafted, and I'll just read it. At Grey County, we believe there is strength in the diversity of our community. Diversity can mean many things: our culture, our identity, and beliefs, including not limited to ethnicity, race, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, and ability. We also recognize everyone brings unique experiences, values, and contributions which add value to our community. By embracing inclusivity and promoting understanding, we can create a community that is strong, welcoming, and willing to learn. When we are intolerant of those who are different from us and unwilling to learn, we create an environment that is divisive and unwelcoming, and even hateful. Let's challenge discrimination and hate when we see it, and instead choose to learn from each other, respect each other, and accept each other for who we are. As warden, I challenge everyone to participate in events, workshops, and initiatives that promote diversity and celebrate cultures and beliefs that differ from your own. Listen with empathy, challenge your own assumptions, and engage in thoughtful conversations. There are already great resources in our community, such as Grey Bruce Pride, Welcoming Grey Bruce, and the Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership. I encourage you to seek them out. I hope that representatives of these organizations will attend a Community Services Committee meeting or County Council to help us understand how our services could be improved to be more welcoming. As Winston Churchill once said, diversity is the one true thing we all have in common. Celebrate it every day. Let's respect each other and celebrate the diversity of our community to make Grey County a place where all voices are valued and everyone feels welcome. And as a final thought, your mother was right. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Be kind. So with that, are there any comments, questions related to the correspondence? Not seeing any. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, transition to new electronic agenda management software, eScribe. Sarah is going to give a brief description of the report. Sarah, welcome. We need a mover and seconder. Councillor Patterson, Councillor McKay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Warden and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this afternoon. I am excited to bring to you an update on the county's transition to eScribe on behalf of the Clerk's Department, endorsed through the 2023 budget process. We are excited to share that we have successfully awarded the contract to eScribe for the county's electronic agenda and report management software. And we are currently in the process of configuring the software with them with a anticipated launch date of within the September meeting cycles. This report just kind of reiterates and provides some background to that process and speaks to some of the supports and resources that will be offered to meeting stakeholders as we transition to the new software. I have nothing further to share than what is outlined in the reports, but I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions? Not seeing any, I'll call the Councillor Carleton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just a question for those of us already using eScribe. How is this going to interact? Are we going to have to be changing accounts, or is it going to automatically populate our meeting agendas with all meetings from both?
Through you, Mr. Warden, thank you for the question. It is my understanding that you will have different profiles on eScribe that you'll use to access your different municipal sites. So you'll use your Grey County email address to access the Grey County site and your local tier to access your local municipality, but the app will, I believe, stay the same. So it'll just be another login for you to manage, unfortunately.
So I would anticipate the IT department will be busy. With me, anyway. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Moving on, the next is a report regarding capital project status update. I will ask for a mover, Councillor Eccles, seconded by Councillor DeBreen. Thank you. And Mary Lou will give us the update. Mary Lou.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So this report is to provide a corporate update on capital projects that were approved in the 2023 budget. There are a couple additions that were unbudgeted projects, and it's a high-level summary. So I'm not obviously going to go through all 209 projects. The majority are green. We have 31 that were yellow and 16 that were red, and that's based on the end of May. So just to give you a little idea, so a green project is on track, as well as it came in on budget. So on track, meaning when we anticipated we would be working on the project, when it would get awarded. Yellow, there's something that's gone slightly off track, but not completely. So it could be that it's not on track budget-wise or not on track time-wise, or have minor issues. And a red project it's off track with issues where it's either significantly over budget, it's been deferred or canceled, or in some of the cases, I know that the departments that have supply chain issues, such as Anne Marie with our makeup units, Pat and Kevin with vehicles and equipment, that won't either, that they were ordered in 2022 and didn't arrive till 2023, or ordering in 2023 and now ordering maybe into already for 2024. So through no fault of their own, those projects would show up as red. I'd like to thank the finance staff and all the staff in the departments for their work on collaborating on this report. There's been a lot of back and forth on, what the status is, when, what are your timelines? This is the first report we've brought of this nature. Historically, we bring you a combined capital and operating financial report. And we decided that we would bring capital because we don't talk about capital in the same manner in those high-level financial reports where we're talking about where we think we're going to be at year end. So this gives you an idea if somebody asked you about a particular project, where we were at the end of May, whether it's on track, whether we're not moving forward with it this year, et cetera. So just providing a better level of detail for you as to what the departments are doing. So we've provided information in the report about our purchasing limits. So departments work closely with procurement's team. So anything up to $5,000 can be a direct purchase. Informal quotes up to $10,000. A request for quotes can be $10,000 to $75,000. A request for tender is over $75,000. And we could issue a request for a proposal or an RFP for any dollar amount. The lengthy spreadsheet that we've got attached as a link provides a lot of information. It provides the detail of what the project's called, the status of it, if we knew the date that it was being awarded or what our estimate was, estimated when we'd complete the project, what the budget was. So the total that was either committed. So if it had been awarded, we knew the commitment number or what we had spent to date. And there are some projects in that are in capital that maybe at some point will become an operating budget item. And I'll point to Anne Marie's budget where we have common area painting. So basically it's to do the common areas of the apartment buildings. So it's not within your unit, it's hallways, et cetera. We draw upon that. And so they have a pool of money and they can draw down on it throughout the year. So it doesn't, when they do the budget, they don't specify that, oh, I'm going to do the hallway at the high rise, the hallway at the low rise, and the building at Chatsworth, things like that. Talking about the project status. So that's your quick reference, whether it's green, yellow, red. We chose to go with like a traffic signal. And if departments or staff in our department had any comments that would help you understand where the project was at. So for example, a green project, as I've mentioned, on track, on time, on budget. One example is that Gray Road 7 pulverize and pave rehab. And you'll see throughout, obviously, most of the projects are green at this point in the year. So that either means that they're well out in the procurement process, as is a lot of the transportation projects, or they're budgeted to occur later in the year. And for a yellow project, when I've said that there's something that's off track, one would be an example, the Gray Roots flat roof replacement. It's over budget by $48,821. That was approved in a report. The archaeological management plan, it's going to be reissued in the fall. And paramedic services stretchers were almost 16,000 over budget, and that was being handled through savings in another budget line. So another project came in under budget, and that's what's funding the shortfall. Projects that are red, I've mentioned supply chain things, so like equipment, vehicles, Patrol D. Obviously, Pat can't build a Patrol D if he doesn't have land. So through no fault of his, that's sitting as a red. Pat's also going to speak about the Clarksburg fuel tank removal following my report. It comes as a red because it's over budget. And that's I'd say the great unknown when you're dealing with something underground, you don't know what's there. And from an insurance point of view, because that's part of my portfolio, that is the last underground fuel tank, of which I'm very grateful because we will no longer be disclosing that on our insurance renewals. So that just gives you a high level overview. And I say there's 209 projects. We're a big operation. And we're going to bring next report, I anticipate the end of September, just to give you an update as we've gone further in the year. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Are there any questions? Not seeing any. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Mary Lou. Moving on, we have an addendum here to the Meaford Union Center subdivision. And it's a final report, and Hiba is here to present that report. Welcome, Hiba.
There you go. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hold on, I apologize for interrupting. I need a mover and seconder. I was doing so good for the whole meeting. I don't know what happened. Councillor Dickert and Councillor Nielsen. No, that's all right. Oh, well, you need to, if you're gonna, if you need water, well, yeah, we'll, you're not gonna be there that long, trust me, okay? But stay hydrated, absolutely. No, it's, yeah, Scott, anyway, Hiba, welcome, proceed.
Thank you for having me. I'm here to present on the Meaford Union Center subdivision, an addendum to report PDR CW 1821. The file number is 42T 2021-05. The civic address is 324 Union Street in the geographic township of Meaford, now in the municipality of Meaford. The subject lands are located within the southwest corner of the primary settlement area in Meaford. The property has access off of Union Street to the east and Center Street to the west. The property currently has no structures on site and is currently vacant. And it's surrounded by primarily residential development and vacant lands. The proposed plan of subdivision, and I'll be flipping between this one and the next slide, just so that everybody can see the visual of the proposed plan of subdivision. But the proposed plan of subdivision is, it will include 83 dwelling units, a stormwater management block, a special exception block, which is located, I'm not sure if I have a cursor, but just it's block 69 on the northeast corner. This is the special exemption block is a remnant block. It's a landlocked block that could not be included into the development. It does not have any street frontage currently, but conditions in the draft approval have been put in place to ensure that access to this block is provided through an easement, and that future development in the area does include this block, takes into consideration this block. The subdivision will also be providing an environmental protection block that was required by Grace Sabo Conservation Authority, one public street that connects to Center Street and Union Street, and one condominium road that loops through the subdivision. The subdivision is on full municipal services. As mentioned, the subdivision will include an internal condominium road and will connect to the future public road, which is Street A. They are in the primary settlement area, and a zoning bylaw amendment application was submitted to the municipality of Meaford, and it was approved by the municipality on June 12, 2023. However, the zoning is conditioned on the approval of this draft plan. So in terms of just comments received, this is a brief summary of some of the comments and concerns received. So there were concerns related to the process that was undertaken from members of the public. So we did identify that the requirements of the Planning Act were followed, and residents were notified within 120 meters of the site, and a public meeting was held on October 4th, 2021. There were concerns related to stormwater and servicing. Technical studies were provided as part of the subdivision. Peer reviews were conducted, and there were no identified concerns related to stormwater and servicing. The subdivision currently has no allocation for servicing, so an environmental impact assessment for the wastewater wastewater treatment plant is being undertaken. So municipal staff at municipal level are aware of the subdivision, have the units in consideration in their numbers, but have not allocated any servicing. That will happen at the time of site plan agreement. There was concern about lack of green space from the public. However, municipality of Meaford did not identify this as an area of, or identified this as a site of where they'd like to locate a public park. There is a public park being considered within 300 meters of this site. Time and impact of construction. There were concerns related to phasing and when construction will be occurring. So phasing for this development has not been determined yet. And some of the issues related to access to the site during construction can be dealt with through site plan agreement. Impacts to traffic generated and minimal sidewalks. So again, studies were submitted to support this development. An addendum was submitted after public concerns were identified. Staff did not find any concerns with the traffic that's going to be generated, and it was determined that will be minimal impacts from this site on traffic. In terms of sidewalks, the public road will have sidewalks on each side, and the condominium road will have a sidewalk on one side of the road. There were concerns regarding density, height, and lot coverage. So this does meet the county requirement for density. No other commenting agencies identified density as a concern. And there were no amendments to the zoning related to lot coverage or height. Concerns over site layout and access to abutting streets. So one of the concerns here was related to the location of the public road. Unfortunately, the way that this site is laid out, there are very limited areas where the public road could be placed. So they had to essentially place it where it is currently being proposed. And then the last concerns was related to construction materials. This is outside the scope of the zoning bylaw and draft plan approvals, as long as they're adhering to the building code, that would be fine. In terms of planning analysis, technical reports were completed, including staff and peer reviews of all technical reports. The proposed development is within a primary settlement area, which is identified in the county and municipal official plan. The recommended draft conditions address all of the municipal and agency comments and go on to address some of the public concerns that were identified. With the recommended draft conditions provided, the county staff are of the opinion that the proposed plan of subdivision does have regard for the Planning Act, the PPS, and conforms to the Grey County and municipal official plan. So we are recommending that the report PDR CW 1821 be received, that all written and oral submissions received on this subdivision, all the comments and concerns that were received were taken into consideration when providing this recommendation. And we recommend that the Grey County Committee of Whole approves this plan of subdivision subject to the draft plan approval. And I also wanted to mention that I have Colin Travis here, who is the applicant's consultant, to help answer any questions.
Thank you, Hiba. Very detailed report. Any questions from council? Seeing no questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Hiba. Excellent. You didn't even need your water. Good for you. So our final report is regarding the Clarksburg Depot project update, and it was alluded to by Mary Lou there a few minutes ago. Pat is going to speak about the remaining removal of the 2 underground tanks that are still the last 2 in the county that the county owns. I'm sure there's a lot more across the county. So Pat, welcome. Come on ahead and speak. So I need a mover and seconder. Almost caught me. Councillor McKay, Councillor McQueen. Thank you. Pat, welcome.
Yeah, Mary Lou stole my thunder there. Ever since we did that truck roll-off video, she's trying to up our presentations because no one wants to see pages of numbers, right? So she used anything to give some good news. Anyway, so but back to this report here. Yeah, so as we said, ultimately a slightly pricey good news story about our new tanks, above ground tanks at Clarksburg. So they were 30-year-old tanks. And originally we had 150,000 in the budget. Now we had put it off for a year. So when I look back at that, we put it off because of supply issues like everything else on earth, it seems. We probably should have jumped up that budget at that time, because if you can't get the tanks, obviously, when they do finally become available, they're probably going to be a lot more than you thought they were going to be. That was an estimate from a contractor at that point who did that type of work. So we're probably a little low with our budget figure to begin with. But anyway, it came in over budget and we were fine with it, because, you know, you kind of have to get it done. And we had made some improvements during construction. So before we had, you know, like you might see in a gas station, just a concrete island, like the raised island. But we had asphalt kind of where the truck would sit, which is kind of a more permeable surface. It was kind of recommended by our contractor. The full concrete impermeable pad is probably better. So we brought that in during construction. We put a bunch more bollards around. If you ever see it, you know, you'd have to be very determined to hit it. Somebody did last year when we didn't have as many bollards, like we still have some bollards, but now there's a ton of them. So, you know, we think it's just a better setup. And we worked with kind of our guys in the patrol to make sure that it was kind of, because Clarksburg isn't a huge yard. We moved the pad slightly to make it less maybe in the way. So we kind of started our work and we were fine with that. We knew there'd be a little bit of overruns there. And then we got into some contamination. Now there was no leaks in the tanks because we're always monitoring our fuel usage to make sure your stuff balances. But basically just the 30 years of, the odd bit of spillage here and there that nobody ever kind of addressed. So the leak seemed to, or the contamination got into kind of like a sand seam between, some clay, because the clay is kind of impermeable too, or at least delayed. So we ended up following this sand seam because it's just one of those things. We wanted to clean the site up. The last thing we need is to leave a bunch of contaminated stuff there. It's not that far from other water sources. We got GM Blue Plan on board to help us with the project. And we basically followed this kind of contamination seam to the end, which luckily didn't get into the right of way or into our road and didn't go towards any other, bodies of water, anything like that. So it basically was contained in our site. We added a few other things in there while we had the asphalt cut out and everything. There was a pipe that we had in one of our storm systems that was probably not as good as we thought. So we replaced it while we had everything dug up. So we did throw a few other jobs in there while we had it open. And then we kind of limited because we ended up digging a lot deeper than we thought. We had granular A as a quantity. We ended up putting more B in, like the beefier and cheaper quantity of that, even though it was all extra costs anyway. But then we kind of only repaired with the asphalt areas we had dug up. So we had there's some other areas that we were going to put in the tender, to improve some of the asphalt around the dome and such. But just because of the overrun, we've decided to put that next year, because next year we're doing Gray Road 40 right in front of the depot. So we're going to put some extra paving into that contract. So we have our overrun of 217 from our original budget, 217,000, and we're looking to get it from the Transportation Services General Reserve. And as I said, the key is kind of that it's a clean site and it is our last underground tank.
Thank you, Pat. It's a long way to say that that's the last two underground tanks. But nonetheless, thank you very much. Any questions from council? Councillor Mackey, sorry. I was that close to getting through the meeting. Sorry, Scott. Councillor Mackey.
Appreciate your effort, Mr. Warden. Pat, this red flag, I'm glad that Mary Lou, gave us the green, yellow, and red, and this certainly showed up as a red. So if the tanks didn't leak, how many gallons of fuel had to be? It's manual error that has caused this. How many gallons over the years would have to be spilt to equate to a cleanup of this magnitude? Like, we're not talking a few drips out of the nozzle. This has to be a fair amount of material. And how are we, even though we're not having underground tanks, that wasn't the cause here, how are we mitigating it in other sites so we don't have this type of cleanup again?
Through you, I believe there was also a kind of a leak where kind of in the filling nozzle, like, when the contractor comes to fill our fuel tank. So there was kind of a leak there too, which I guess by the time your tank gets full, maybe you're kind of missing out on that quantity. So, I don't think it's not like guys are going in there crazy or anything, I think, but I don't think it wouldn't take many spills probably to seep into the ground and do damage. So it's hard for me to kind of pinpoint what that would be. Obviously all our guys go, and I remember I had the training kind of when I started the county, like fuel training, filling fuel training, right? And And I remember the time going, why am I taking, I've been filling a car since I was 16, you know, but there is a lot of kind of advice in there on how to, we never did it at one time, but now everyone goes through the training on just being careful, reporting anything the moment it happens, as opposed to just kind of wandering away and letting it evaporate and leak and no one notices. So it's hard for me to pinpoint how much that is over 30 years. But obviously it's something we're trying to prevent at every chance we get.
So we can be confident that nobody's jamming the cap into the hose handle anymore and just walking away, right? Excellent. Not that that ever happened in the past, but any other questions? Councillor Matrosovs.
Thank you. Through you, the warden, just a question to understand the investment that we put into this one. What would be the nearest depot where fuel could be obtained if this weren't here in this part of Grey County? Significant. Thank you, Chatsworth. Thank you.
Any other questions? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Pat. We have no other business. Is there any notice of motion? Not seeing any. Someone care to move adjournment? Councillor Eccles, Councillor Matrosovs. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.